There's a moment in every Sigma empath's life that changes everything, the first real betrayal. It's not just heartbreak or disappointment, it's the moment they finally see the world without illusion. They gave their trust, their energy, their compassion, and in return, they were used, ignored, or broken by someone they thought would never hurt them. That's the day the old version of them dies. The naive, overly giving empath disappears, and in their place rises someone calm, sharp, and impossible to manipulate again. The betrayal that was meant to destroy them becomes the moment that builds them. Because once a Sigma empath sees how easily kindness can be exploited, they stop giving it to everyone. They learn that not everyone deserves access to their energy. They begin moving differently, quieter, smarter, more intentional. Their boundaries become stronger, their intuition sharper, their empathy more selective. And that's when they become unstoppable. Because nothing is more powerful than someone who still feels deeply, but no longer gets controlled by emotion. This video will reveal why betrayal becomes the Sigma empath's awakening, how it transforms their pain into clarity, their vulnerability into power, and their heart into armor. You'll understand why the person who once absorbed everyone's chaos becomes the calmest, most unshakable force in the room. So before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Brainy Empath. This is your space for deep thinkers, emotional survivors, and intuitive minds who've learned to protect their peace without losing their heart. And tell me in the comments, did your first deep betrayal change how you see people forever? The first deep betrayal awakens the Sigma empath's intuition on a new level. For a Sigma empath, the first betrayal isn't just emotional pain, it's a psychological awakening. It's the moment they stop seeing people for who they hope they are and start seeing them for who they truly are. Before that experience, they lead with trust. They believe in the good in everyone, assume honesty, and overlook red flags because their heart wants to believe people mean well. But betrayal changes that completely. It cracks open their perception and exposes every illusion they once lived in. Suddenly, every memory looks different, every word spoken takes on new meaning, and every small inconsistency they ignored now screams the truth they refused to see. This is where their intuition transforms from gentle awareness into razor-sharp perception. The Sigma empath no longer just feels energy, they read it. They sense dishonesty before it's spoken, feel hidden motives behind smiles, and detect emotional shifts others pretend don't exist. The betrayal rewires their emotional radar, teaching them to trust their inner voice above anyone else's words. What once felt like sensitivity now becomes intelligence. Their mind and intuition begin to work together, like a defense system, reading tone, timing, and truth in perfect alignment. The pain that once overwhelmed them now serves a purpose. Every sleepless night spent overthinking turns into emotional pattern recognition. Every tear shed becomes a lesson in discernment. They stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start realizing it happened for me. Because after betrayal, the Sigma empath doesn't just heal, they evolve. They start moving through life with quiet awareness, no longer seeking reassurance from others, but validation from their own intuition. And that's where their true power begins. They don't become cold, they become clear. They don't lose empathy, they gain wisdom. The same heart that was once wide open now has armor made of insight. And the same mind that once doubted itself now listens to every gut feeling like it's a warning from the future. The first betrayal doesn't destroy the Sigma empath, it activates them. It turns their pain into perception, their vulnerability into vision. And from that moment on, they never ignore their intuition again because it no longer whispers, it warns. They stop confusing compassion with tolerance. Before betrayal, the Sigma empath believes that love means patience, that being kind means forgiving endlessly. They give chances to people who don't deserve them, absorb emotions that aren't theirs, and keep showing up for those who only take. Their compassion is pure, but it's misplaced. They think understanding someone's pain means excusing their behavior. They think being good-hearted means staying even when it hurts. But betrayal teaches them the harsh truth. Compassion without boundaries isn't love, it's self-destruction. after being betrayed, something shifts inside them. They start seeing how their empathy was used against them, how manipulators interpret kindness as weakness, and how people who lack depth often feed off those who have too much of it. The Sigma Empath begins to separate emotional understanding from emotional tolerance. They realize it's possible to forgive someone internally and still walk away. They can care without allowing chaos back into their life. Their heart still feels deeply, but now it operates with precision. They no longer pour endlessly into people who refuse to heal. They reserve their compassion for those who deserve it. This evolution doesn't make them cold, it makes them clear. Their empathy becomes mature, grounded, and self-protective. They stop trying to fix others and start protecting their own peace. They stop explaining their intentions to people committed to misunderstanding them. And instead of asking, "How can I help?" they start asking, "Is this mine to carry?" That question changes everything. Now, when they see pain in others, they don't rush in blindly, they observe first. They can still feel someone's energy, but they don't absorb it. They can still understand someone's trauma, but they won't let it excuse manipulation or disrespect. Their compassion is still strong, but it has boundaries that no longer bend. The Sigma Empath finally learns that kindness without self-respect isn't noble, it's dangerous. And once they make that distinction, their entire energy changes. They love deeper but smarter. They give freely but selectively. They show empathy without losing themselves in someone else's chaos, because the moment they stop confusing compassion with tolerance, they stop bleeding for people who were never willing to heal. Pain teaches them the power of emotional boundaries. The Sigma Empath doesn't learn boundaries through advice, they learn them through pain, the kind that hits deep, the kind that changes how you breathe. For most of their life, they believed that love meant access, that to care for someone, you had to let them in completely. They opened their heart without limits, shared their energy freely, and carried the emotions of everyone around them. But after betrayal, that openness turns into exhaustion, they start to see the cost of letting everyone in, the way it drains their spirit, distorts their identity, and leaves them feeling invisible in their own life. Pain becomes their teacher. It shows them that not everyone who wants access deserves it, that empathy without structure leads to chaos, that saying no isn't cruelty, it's protection. The Sigma Empath begins to understand that emotional boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't block love, they preserve it. They learn to separate someone's pain from their own, to listen without absorbing, to care without carrying. And for the first time, they realize how powerful peace feels when it's protected by limits. These new boundaries transform the way they move through the world. They no longer explain their distance, they simply maintain it. They no longer justify their silence, they honor it. The people who once drained them start losing access, not because the Sigma became cold, but because they finally became wise. Their empathy doesn't disappear, it evolves. It becomes intentional, focused, and balanced. What once felt like selfishness now feels like self-respect. They stop letting guilt trick them into overgiving. They stop confusing obligation with love. They understand that protecting their emotional space allows them to show up as their best self, calm, aware, and in control. Pain taught them that boundaries are not a rejection of others, they are an acceptance of self. And once a Sigma Empath learns this lesson, everything changes. They stop bleeding energy for people who refuse to heal. They stop trying to prove their worth through sacrifice. Their love becomes lighter but stronger because it's no longer built on exhaustion. It's built on balance. And that's when they realize boundaries don't limit empathy, they make it unstoppable. Their empathy becomes selective, no more saving everyone. Before betrayal, the Sigma Empath sees their gift as a mission, to heal, to help, to fix. They sense pain in others like it's their own, and they can't walk away from someone who's hurting. It's instinctive. They give time, energy, forgiveness, and understanding without limits. But after betrayal, that empathy that once felt like a calling starts to feel like a trap. They realize that not everyone wants healing. Some people just want company in their chaos. Some use vulnerability as manipulation, feeding on the empath's kindness to avoid accountability, and that realization changes everything. The Sigma Empath begins to pull back, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. They stop trying to rescue everyone because they finally see how saving people who refuse to grow only drains the savior. They understand that empathy without discernment is self-destruction. Their heart doesn't harden, but it becomes intelligent. They start asking different questions. Is this person ready to change? Do they take responsibility for their pain, or am I just being used as their emotional escape? These questions become their filter, turning blind empathy into selective compassion. When they start choosing who to give their energy to, something powerful happens. Peace returns. They no longer chase broken people, they attract balanced ones. Their empathy becomes deeper, but rarer. They still care, they just don't carry. They still listen, but only to those who respect their silence in return. The ones who used to drain them no longer recognize them because the old version of the Sigma Empath, the one who gave endlessly, doesn't exist anymore. This evolution makes them both calmer and stronger. They still love, still forgive, still understand, but they no longer lose themselves doing it. They realize that true empathy doesn't mean saving people from their lessons. It means letting them face them. That's how growth happens for both sides. So now, the Sigma Empath doesn't run toward every cry for help. They observe first. They give energy where it's valued, not where it's wasted. Because once they've healed from betrayal, they understand one truth that changes everything. Not everyone deserves your empathy, only those who would never weaponize it against you. They start reading energy instead of words. After betrayal, the Sigma Empath stops listening with their ears, they start listening with their intuition. They've learned that words can be beautiful lies, but energy never deceives. Someone can say all the right things, but if their tone is off, their presence feels heavy, or their intentions vibrate with self-interest, the Sigma Empath feels it instantly. They no longer rely on what people say, they rely on what they emit. And once this shift happens, they become almost impossible to manipulate. It's a subtle kind of intelligence, built through pain and clarity. The Sigma Empath used to take words at face value, believing apologies, promises, and declarations of love. But betrayal burned that illusion away. Now they sense the emotional truth behind every sentence. They can feel when someone's words don't align with their vibration. They notice the hesitation between phrases, the emotional inconsistency. And instead of confronting it directly, they simply make a mental note, a quiet decision to trust their gut over someone's story. This ability to read energy turns their perception into a kind of emotional radar. They can walk into a room and instantly feel who's genuine, who's hiding something, who's projecting calm but carrying tension. They don't analyze, they feel the truth. It's instinctive, fast, and precise. And while this level of awareness can feel isolating at times, it also gives them control. They no longer walk blindly into relationships or situations that drain them. They see the truth early before it hurts. People often describe Sigma Empaths as mysterious or hard to fool, but it's not mystery, it's mastery. They've learned to trust energy over emotion, behavior over excuses, patterns over promises. And once they start operating from that frequency, their intuition becomes their armor. They stop asking, what did they say, and start asking, what did I feel? Because feelings, unlike words, don't lie. They may not expose someone instantly, but they always point in the right direction. After betrayal, the Sigma Empath's vision sharpens beyond logic. They no longer listen to explanations, they listen to vibration. And that shift makes them unstoppable, because once you can read energy, you can never be fooled by words again. Silence becomes their protection and strength. After betrayal, the Sigma Empath realizes that silence is not weakness, it's armor. They used to explain everything, their feelings, their pain, their intentions. They thought being transparent would make others understand them better, but instead, their openness was used against them. Their honesty became ammunition. That's when they learned that not everyone deserves access to their inner world. So they stopped giving explanations and started giving distance. Their silence became their filter, separating who truly cared from who just wanted information. Now, they use silence as their first line of defense. They don't rush to respond when provoked. They don't react to manipulation or guilt. Instead, they stay quiet and observe. In that stillness, they regain control. Silence gives them clarity. It lets the noise fade so they can hear their intuition clearly. It exposes who gets uncomfortable when they're no longer easy to read, and it reveals who only valued them when they were giving constant emotional feedback. This silence isn't passive, it's strategic. When the Sigma empath stops explaining, they stop bleeding energy. They realize they don't owe anyone closure, validation, or access to their emotions. Their calm withdrawal says more than any confrontation ever could. People who once thrived on their reactions suddenly face emptiness, and in that emptiness, their true character shows. The Sigma watches quietly, without anger, just awareness. Their silence also becomes a form of healing. It's where they recharge their mind, protect their peace, and rebuild their boundaries. They find comfort in solitude where no one's energy interrupts their own. That quiet becomes their sanctuary, the place where they transform pain into strength and confusion into understanding. And what others mistake for indifference is actually discipline. The Sigma empath's silence means they've outgrown the need to prove anything. They don't seek revenge, they seek restoration, and silence is the path. So when they stop talking, it's not because they're broken. It's because they've mastered control. Their silence says, I've learned enough. It's peace disguised as mystery, and it's power disguised as calm. Because once a Sigma empath learns to protect their energy with silence, nothing and no one can shake their peace again. Betrayal turns them from people pleasers into purpose-driven souls. Before betrayal, the Sigma empath's world revolves around connection. They crave harmony, want to be understood, and often sacrifice their own needs just to keep peace. They say yes when they mean no. They shrink themselves to make others comfortable. They carry guilt for things they didn't cause. To them, pleasing people feels like love, until betrayal shatters that illusion. That's the moment everything changes. The pain of realizing that their kindness was taken for granted breaks something inside, but in that breaking, something stronger is born: purpose. They begin to see that being liked is cheap, but being aligned is priceless. The Sigma empath no longer asks, does this make them happy? They start asking, does this honor my peace? That single question redirects their entire life. Their energy, once scattered across everyone else's needs, begins to flow inward. They no longer chase approval because they finally understand that validation is a cage, and the door to that cage was betrayal, the wake-up call that forced them to choose themselves. Now, they move differently. They're not bitter, just focused. They pour their empathy into things that build, not break. Their compassion fuels creation, growth, and healing, not codependency. The same energy that once tried to save everyone now drives them toward purpose, building, teaching, writing, healing, evolving. Their pain becomes their map, guiding them toward meaning. People around them feel the shift. The old version, the one who always said it's okay, is gone. The new version has boundaries sharper than truth. They no longer fear losing people because they've already survived losing themselves. And that survival gave them something far greater than approval. It gave them direction. Betrayal doesn't make a Sigma empath cold, it makes them intentional. They stop living to keep others comfortable and start living to fulfill their potential. Their empathy doesn't vanish, it matures. It becomes selective, strategic, and sacred. The once people-pleasing heart now beats with purpose. They no longer exist to be understood, they exist to understand themselves. And once a Sigma empath starts living from purpose instead of people-pleasing, they become unstoppable because they no longer run on guilt, they run on truth. Once healed, they love differently, wiser, calmer, and untouchable. After betrayal, the Sigma empath doesn't stop loving, they just stop loving blindly. The way they used to give endlessly and without question fades away. What replaces it is something quieter, stronger, and infinitely more powerful. A love built on awareness. They no longer fall for potential, they recognize patterns. They no longer chase connection, they allow it to unfold naturally. The heart that once rushed to give now moves with discernment. Every emotion is filtered through clarity, not impulse. And when they love again, it's not from need, it's from choice. They've learned that love isn't proven through sacrifice, it's sustained through respect. They no longer mistake attachment for depth or chaos for passion. They understand that peace isn't boring, it's sacred. So they choose partners who match their calm, not those who test it. They build connections with mutual energy, not emotional imbalance. And because they've healed, they can finally love without losing themselves in the process. Their empathy still runs deep, but now it flows where it's valued, not wasted. What truly makes their love different after healing is how unshakable it becomes. They don't react out of fear, they respond out of understanding. They're not desperate to be chosen because they've already chosen themselves. That inner security makes them magnetic. Their calm attracts, their peace inspires, and their self-respect commands quiet admiration. The same sensitivity that once got them hurt now becomes their greatest filter for authenticity. And for anyone lucky enough to earn their love, it feels different too. There's depth without drama, warmth without weakness, care without control. They listen without judgment, but won't tolerate disrespect. They forgive, but never forget the lessons that shaped their strength. Their love doesn't consume, it uplifts. Once healed, the Sigma Empath's love becomes untouchable because it's rooted in self-awareness, not illusion. They've walked through betrayal, rebuilt their boundaries, and mastered emotional control. Nothing external can shake what they've built internally. They love differently now, not softer, but smarter, not faster, but deeper. Because once a Sigma Empath learns to love from peace instead of pain, their heart stops being a target and becomes their greatest source of power. Betrayal may have cracked the Sigma Empath open, but it didn't break them. It refined them. It stripped away illusions, rewired their intuition, and taught them that protecting their peace is not selfish, it's sacred. They no longer chase, overgive, or explain. They move with calm precision, fueled by empathy that's rooted in wisdom, not wounds. And that's why once they heal, they become unstoppable, because nothing is more powerful than a heart that feels deeply but no longer gets controlled by emotion. If you've ever had to rebuild yourself after being betrayed, know this: it didn't end you, it activated you. The new version of you is wiser, stronger, and completely untouchable. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to Brainy Empath, a space for deep souls, quiet thinkers, and empaths who've learned to turn their pain into clarity. And tell me in the comments, did betrayal make you colder, or did it finally make you stronger?